Hello. Thank you for choosing to watch our presentation. My name is Elysse, and with me are my teammates.
Esther,
Amber,
Tristin, Neydine.
Social media has skyrocketed in its popularity since its conception, and there is no doubt that it has an impact on our everyday life. We all regularly engage in the use of social media and have seen how it affects our own lives and wanted to address that observation a little bit further. Mental health can be heavily influenced by what we expose ourselves to, especially our levels of anxiety, depression, and self-esteem. You can never learn too much about how to keep yourself happy and healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically.
We hypothesize that the amount of time spent on social media has an effect on one's mental health, specifically depression, self-esteem, and anxiety. Previous research studies pertaining to time spent on social media and mental health suggest that frequent engagement of social media use could affect certain aspects of mental health. These studies have found a connection between social media usage and a number of variables such as narcissism, perceived social support, self-esteem, anxiety, and depression. I would just briefly go over some of the studies that we reviewed. There's two that touched on addictive social media usage. On this study, it showed that addictive social media use and self-esteem are negatively correlated. So a lot of the individuals had low self-esteem. And then it also displayed that narcissism and addictive social media use have a positive correlation. Another study focused on why individuals use social media, and it's for the fear of missing out, hence FOMO. And this showed that it was positively associated with time spent on social media, as well as higher levels of more depressive and physical symptoms. We move on to another study on mental health in young adults. This one in particular showed that social media and mental health had little to no correlation, but it did show that vague booking helped predict loneliness and suicidal thoughts. Vague booking is basically posts that an individual makes to entice a user to reach out to them and seek them and ask them how they're doing. Another study focused on parental control of time spent on social media. This one found that the greater parental control over time spent on social media resulted in better pre-adolescent mental health in terms of depressive symptoms and appearance satisfaction. We move forward to one on social media as a social media as a source of support. And these were college students who were already under distress that would look for social media as social support instead of family and friends. And this one found that those who were victimized on social media was positively correlated to depression. And individuals do make negative comparisons to those online, and it also found that social media occasionally contributed to their stress. And last, we have a study on Instagram use and idealized image. This one showed that the participants who were exposed to images of fitness and beauty negatively impacted their self-image, and it also showed that it affects perception and value of an individual. And all these types of studies and existing literature help us make a case for why further studies are needed regarding this topic.
for our research, we will be testing 3 variables: anxiety, depression, and self-esteem. We operationally define these as follows: anxiety, feeling nervous, worry, unease, and out of control; depression, feeling sad, lack of energy, unmotivated; self-esteem, level of confidence in oneself, and the perception of worthiness. We will be testing these variables using a modified version of the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale, Patient Health Questionnaire 9, and the General Anxiety Disorder 7. Before we made the survey available to our participants, we conducted a pilot. The participants consisted of other survey researchers in our class here at Cal Poly. They were instructed to take the survey and give us any feedback they may have. With the feedback given, we decided to change our interest question and fix the wording of a double-barrel question we had originally.
Regarding our research materials, the team used 2 online platforms, Sona and Qualtrics, for survey distribution and SPSS to interpret data. For research design, the survey had a total of 28 questions on informed consent at the beginning and a debriefing statement at the end. There were 5 general interest questions that asked how much time participants spent on social media, the type of content on their feed, and the purpose of their social media accounts. 3 demographic items were placed at the end of the survey in order to avoid identity threat. The rest of the questions were 19 4-point Likert scale statements that asked participants to evaluate how strongly they agreed or disagreed with each item. 10 of these items asked about positive and negative aspects of using social media. The remaining 9 questions consisted of items from the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale, PHQ-9, and GAD-7 scales, which measured anxiety, depression, and self-esteem. As for our sampling strategy, given the amount of time available and the situation with the pandemic, the team decided to use convenience sampling. Since our survey was completely online, participants were able to choose the time slot that best fit their schedule to take the survey. Some participants were offered extra credit as an incentive to take our survey at their professor's discretion. For our constructs, we investigated time spent on social media and the aspects of mental health, which were the participants' anxiety, depression, and self-esteem while using social media. As previously stated, the operational definitions for anxiety referred to general uneasiness, depression referred to negative feelings, and self-esteem referred to participants' view of themselves compared to others on social media. Time meant the amount of hours spent browsing any social media sites. For our measures, the 4-point Likert scale questions ranged from strongly agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. 4 of the questions dealing with anxiety, depression, and self-esteem were reverse coded. After we ran the pilot and adjusted our survey, we published it on Qualtrics and Sona for a week. Participants were able to participate by clicking a link to our survey via Sona. When participants opened our survey, they were greeted by a welcome page, followed by an informed consent. If participants did not consent, they were thanked for their time and directed to the end of the survey. Once participants gave their consent, they were met with 5 questions about their social media usage, followed by rating how much they agreed with the 19 Likert scale statements regarding their social media experience and their mental health. These questions were followed up with 3 demographic questions about their age, gender, and ethnicity. It took around 15 minutes to complete the survey. After completion, participants were brought to a debriefing statement and thanked for their time. Overall, the total sample size was 255 people minus the pilot sample. As shown here, the majority of our participants were 18 to 20-year-old women of Hispanic and Latinx ethnicity. These participants were close to our study's target population, which were college students. College students were our target population because they are our peers and relatively have higher frequency of using social media.
Our hypothesis for the current study is that the amount of time spent on social media has an effect on one's mental health, specifically depression, self-esteem, and anxiety. More precisely, participants who spend more time on social media would have more mental health issues. To investigate further into this theory, a one-way ANOVA was used to test for anxiety, depression, and self-esteem as dependent variables. The results of this study is as follows. Time on social media and depression has an F-value of 1.084 with the p-value of 0.356. The time on social media and self-esteem has an F-value of 2.491 with the p-value of 0.061. And last but not least, the time on social media and anxiety has an F-value of 1.610 with the p-value of 0.188.
The results of our study show that there were no significant differences between the time spent on social media and the mental health for each one of our variables, which were depression, self-esteem, and anxiety. There were several reasons as to why our research was not supported by the statistical evidence, the main points being age of survey takers, lack of the vulnerability in our current society, the length of the research study, and the level of the emotional intelligence in the participants. Most of our research participants were Cal Poly Pomona students, placing them in the general age range of 18 to 25. Although this age range is significant, many of the participants were juniors and seniors who have a different perspective on social media and its effects. One of the biggest problems in today's society is the fear of vulnerability. This is a large issue in many areas, but the effect it has on the psyche of the younger generation prevents them from opening up about the struggles of mental health. Because of this, false reporting may have had an effect on the data in this current study. Another reason our data did not support the hypothesis is the length of the research study. Our survey was active for a short amount of time, only a week, and although we received a significant amount of completed surveys, the more data collected would have yielded different results if the survey had been active longer. Lastly, another cause for the lack of support was the emotional intelligence of the participants in the survey. As stated before, the participants are college students. Those who attend college are suggested to have a higher emotional intelligence than those who choose to not attend college. College students who are dedicated to their education tend to focus less on mundane issues and instead focus on future goals and how to achieve them. Along with this, we did have some limitations in our study, and some of those limitations were self-reporting, the effect of the pandemic, and the limited to solely online data collection.
In future studies, the pandemic should be considered in terms of its influence on social media usage. People may be on social media more due to the need for social connections in ways that they are lacking right now. A second consideration would be to assess a younger age group, specifically an adolescent age group that may be more influenced by the negative effects of social media due to the importance of peer influences during the adolescent years. Another change could include the administering of the survey. Right now, technology is, for lack of a better phrase, a saving grace for the current state of the world. People may be more grateful than they were pre-pandemic. When permitted, a paper survey may help rule out technology as a limitation. Lastly, an experimental study can be conducted. A control group could take the survey. The experimental group could go on social media prior to the survey for approximately 5 to 10 minutes and then take the survey to see if there's a difference between the two groups. While our results did not support our hypothesis, it is in the best interest of society to continue to study the effects of social media on mental health. Thank you for watching our presentation. Stay safe.